Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm here with Mark Hayes, and we're going to be talking about, we're going to learn about Mark and his background as a real estate investor and now a lender, and just talk a lot about the importance of adapting and pivoting. I think if you've been in the game, for any length of time, certainly over the past few years, those words don't come as a surprise because everybody's had to figure out how to duck and dodge and adapt and pivot to their current situation. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to sit down and have a little chat with you.
Yeah. So eager to get to know you better. I know you just recently joined Investor Fuel here, so we're excited about that. And in fact, at the time this comes out, it'll be past, but we have Investor Fuel coming up here in New Orleans in just a couple of days as of the time we're recording this. So looking forward to seeing you there next week.
Definitely. Looking forward to it.
So tell us a little bit about you and your background. I know you have a rich experience. Maybe just kind of share how you got up to this point and a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah. So I got started in real estate investing in the early 2000s. A friend of mine back home, he had bought a couple properties, and I just kind of asked him, hey, how did you get into this? And he let me borrow an old Carlton Sheets course. I don't know if people on this call remember those, but I listened to it on the way back from North Carolina to my home in Nashville at the time. And I was hooked, just everything he was talking about was just something that it just really interested me. So, and I've got an engineering background. And so, after that, I just tried to kind of figure out what I wanted to do in real estate. So I felt like I was kind of getting torn in a few different directions. I'd talk to somebody in the business and say, oh, you should do this. I go to a RIA meeting and hear a speaker, and that, excited me. So I ended up kind of settling on doing fix and flips, having that construction background from my engineering days. And then I was keeping some as rentals, and then early, I progressed into doing new construction. And that's kind of when, here in the Nashville area and a lot of other cities, there was kind of a boom of new construction with urban infill lots. So, I was, building 1 and 2 homes, kind of focused on one area of Nashville. And in that way, I knew the area really well. Mm-hmm. And I could also jump around to jobs, and so, as development just got more and more in the area, codes here started putting in more things in place, inspections taking longer, more cost. So, to go from like when we were building like a single family home in 4 to 6 months, like from when we bought it, the lot, to selling it, it went after a few years to like 9 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So I went to scale, and I really enjoyed the design aspect of that and building different style homes and different size homes to meet affordability and things like that. Meanwhile, I was, again, building a rental portfolio. But, in 2018, I started looking at my numbers, and, although I had scaled and was basically doing double, I really wasn't making much more. I was just kind of getting bald and gray, as you jokes. So I started looking and at what is my pivot. And definitely during that process, I did adapt up to the market conditions and with codes and different things to make it work. But I started looking at, what do I want to do next? And so I got into lending in 2019. And so I started lending to other investors. And so, really enjoy that because I know that side of the business. I've done it. I've built and renovated over 100 homes in my career. I've done numerous transactions, buying and selling and refinancing, and with me obtaining all sorts of different loans, from creative financing to the banks to hard money loans. I really knew the finance side of it as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I primarily do now, and is help people with their lending solutions, that's going to help them scale and grow their business.
Yeah. That's a pretty natural fit. I mean, and I'll say over the past few years, I know a lot of people that transitioned more into the lending side, whether it's like all the way in or supplemental to what they're doing. Especially if you've been a like for example, if you've been a large wholesaler, well, you know who all the buyers are, so you have a list of potential customers
That's
that
right.
you could just kind of go after. I'm sure even in the fix and flip and new construction side, like you just know in your market like who all the players are that need lending services, and so it's a natural fit, and quite frankly, if they're gonna work with somebody local, they wanna work with somebody that knows what they're doing generally, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And honestly, when I started doing the lending, Nashville had gotten very, expensive because the land costs had gone up. So, I was working with, and a lot of other investors in Nashville had started to go to other markets, some smaller markets like Knoxville and Chattanooga
Yeah.
specifically, or some other cities, maybe like an hour outside of Nashville that were growing and seeing growth. We're still the point of entry was still a a good entry point to buy some property and either keep as rentals or to sell.
Yep. Yep, and that type of stuff's happened all over the country. I'm in the Dallas market, and I
Yeah.
just my wife and I were just talking about it today. We were looking at some stuff, and I remember when I first started, and my numbers could be off a little bit, but they're not too far off. So when I first started in 2008, or when we started in 2008, I think the median price point in the DFW market was like 180, and today we looked it up, it's 485. I mean,
Wow.
it's incredible. Now there's been a massive influx of population here and in Nashville too, right? A
Yep.
lot of people move into more, business friendly states or no income tax states or things like that. There's lots of reasons why people move here. But yeah, I think part of it is just realizing we talked about kind of understanding the market conditions, and part of it is a combination of like, well, here's maybe the challenges I'm having, what I like about it's kind of like the market conditions and your own like personal conditions too, like know
Yes.
what it is you want to do, right? I mean, I think the beauty of being an entrepreneur, a real estate entrepreneur especially, is like you can evolve. Like you don't have to keep doing the same thing always. It's
Right.
not like you have one skill, one trade. You're like a butcher and you don't know anything else. I don't want to take anything away from butchers. Maybe they know more, but you get what I'm saying is like you can evolve.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, that's not to say that you don't stay with the one thing that you
Sure.
do the whole
Right.
time because when I was building homes, when I got into the new construction and development, I kind of had that mindset. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
For the rest of my, career. But, again, things change, you get more experience, market conditions change. So, when I talk about adapt and pivot, it's really two different things. So, you can adapt within the confines of, the investing that you're doing to keep up and grow. But then, but if you pivot, you're kind of pivoting into something else. And sometimes people can think, well, he's not building homes anymore. He must have, done bad.
Right.
That's not true, So,
Yeah.
it's just, I was ready to do something else. And I actually, 2022, I started writing a book and it came out in the summer of 2024. And I've always wanted to write a book because as I've experienced all my things in real estate and as I, would be driving from site to site or whatever, and something
Yep.
would happen that was a learning experience or something crazy with a contractor, whatever it was. I was like, that'd be a great thing to put in a book. So,
Yeah.
I went, it was end of 2021. I went to this business mastermind weekend, and the person leading it, talked about writing a book. And so that was, something that after that weekend, I came back and I wrote out an outline and of what I wanted to write about. And so that was an interesting journey, but basically the book it's called Dip Your Toe into Real Estate Investing. So
Okay.
it's for people who want to get into real estate investing, but they don't know where to start. So it kind of covers, all the basics, but then it also helps someone with their strengths and their interest and their experience kind of go into one of those areas of investing that might be a good fit first.
Yeah.
And because like I said, when I was first starting, I was kind of getting torn in different directions for the first couple years till I settled in on what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of people that when they get started, they are so overwhelmed with the things they could do. The most common scenario is they do nothing because you're just
Right, right.
overwhelmed. Like, I tried this. And the truth is people will say, I tried this. And effectively they'll say, or believe it was hard. It's like, it's all hard. Like,
Yeah,
it's all hard. And the only way it doesn't get easier. You just get better and more tolerant about doing that thing. And you find yourself a little bit too. It's like, okay, I don't like this as much as I like that. So I'm going to lean into that. And part of the pivoting process, whether it's a difficult market or it's just you having done enough reps to say, you know what, I don't enjoy that as much as I enjoyed this. And therefore, that's part of the pivoting process, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, just the importance of like always being a student. Like, cause I think that is part of the process of learning about yourself, learning about where the market's headed, learning from other people. One of the beauties of the mastermind is being around other people and just getting exposed to different techniques or different thoughts or whatever it might be. But I think it's really critical for us as entrepreneurs to like always be learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I always put, and I talk about this in the book is I put networking and education kind of combined together
Yeah.
because you're going to learn from others and you're going to be able to share some things with others and you're going to make relationships that are going to help with your business. And so those two are definitely things that I always put together. So the education part though is you can always learn more. So, it doesn't matter if you've built 100 homes, you can learn more. And also the times change, especially with like technology, for example,
Yeah.
AI that's been coming on to the scene to
Yeah.
help you with your business and how to use those tools. So you really kind of have to continue to educate yourself. And so that's why I just think it's really important in this
Yeah.
business.
And I think for all entrepreneurs, not just real estate investors or entrepreneurs or lenders, but really all entrepreneurs, probably all people, is like we often, and I think the last couple of years has been obviously difficult for a lot of people. It's one of these learning opportunities where you're learning new things, but sometimes you're just reverting to old things, like things that you got away from. Like we all pick up bad habits over time. And there's this, it's kind of like spring cleaning. And I've talked probably to my team a lot about, I've talked probably on the show about it a few times about just the importance of getting back to basics, because sometimes it's easy for us to, pick up bad habits, I guess, and start to do things that just don't make sense. And they seem to make sense. And you get off this trajectory and you just start going the wrong way. And I think it's important for us as entrepreneurs to like look back and say like, why did I stop doing that? It made sense at the time. And somehow like you can see this fork in the road that happened and you went down a wrong path. But every once in a while you have to turn around and say like, am I on track here or do I need to go back to a previous point?
Yeah, and it also kind of goes back to, making mistakes.
Yeah.
I still make mistakes and I've been in the business a long time and I've made some things, some decisions that I definitely regret, but you got to learn from them and
Yeah.
take what you learn and again, adapt and pivot to improve yourself and your business.
Yeah. That's how evolution works. You touch a hot stove and you stick your arm in a crocodile's mouth or whatever the current equivalent of that is in real estate investing, and you're like, don't do that again. But you need to learn those lessons sometimes. So maybe talk a little bit about as an entrepreneur. I think sometimes like I would say I very much believe that our businesses are a tool to earn money that's dry powder for us to live our lives the way we want to on our terms, have impact, like all those things, right? And so I think that sometimes people get caught up in doing the thing that they're doing and they lose sight of their goals, which truthfully are often fed financially. I'm not saying everybody's goals are money, but money is the tool to allow you to do what you want to do. So just talk about the importance, like when you're pivoting, right? Some people feel like they're so pigeonholed into doing what they're doing that financially they can't make that leap. So maybe just share some thoughts on the importance of financially having clarity as to where you are and where you need to be, because if you
Right.
can't hit those goals, nothing else matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So like for example, when I pivoted from doing mainly development, building homes to the lending, I had built up this rental portfolio, and so the equity had gone up, cash flow had gone up, whereas in the first few years of building that portfolio, the cash flow wasn't great, and I was okay with that. But at that point, when I did decide to make that change, cash flow, my rentals to be able to, as kind of a safety net while I got the lending business up and going.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, and, when it comes to the finances, I basically had to teach myself the bookkeeping, and I struggled in the first few years, even like, getting things to my accountant and understanding these reports he was asking for and putting things in the right place, because I was just trying to do it all myself. And so, learning the bookkeeping side and the financial side is just so crucial, because otherwise you're just going to get yourself into a rat race, which you were trying to get out of. Mostly what everybody usually does is they want to get into real estate investing because they're tired of the job, the W-2, and the rat race. But you can easily, self-employed real estate investor, get into that same thing if you're not managing your money well.
Yeah. Yeah. And your time too, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's so easy to get caught up in, for example, that scenario there of bookkeeping of like, it's one of the reasons that I talk a lot about scale is like not to necessarily go get a Lambo or fly on private jets or whatever. It's like, no, get a bookkeeper, like get somebody to allow you to buy your time back. Cause that's the one thing that we ultimately wish we had more of.
That's absolutely right. And,
Yeah.
as far as the time, the two best decisions I made as I was, just advancing in my business, one was, hiring an assistant, and that freed up. And they were also helping with the property management at the time, because I was self-managing my rentals and managing the renovations. I was doing it all. So that freed up my time as well to concentrate on new acquisitions, financing, the important things, and then also hiring a third-party property manager. I mean, that was huge. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't want to do that because of the cost. They actually have paid for themselves, because I was so busy. I wasn't charging enough rent, the true market rent, on a lot of these properties when they came vacant. And so when they took over and, new leases came up and new vacancies came up, my cash flow went up, because they were that's what they concentrate on. That's what they're good at.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Can you talk a little about the importance of like understanding your interests? Like a lot of us have, personal interests, but we also have business interests. Like what is it you like to do? What is it? Some people, for example, like, part of the hard money process is you gotta like to talk to people because you have to prospect of those relationships, right? And then also just I think a lot of real estate investors forget that they have a lot of skills that are very transferable into other things. And I'm sure you went through that
Yeah.
process when you were thinking of like, what else do I want to do? Like, where do I go from here? But just talk about that
Yeah.
that kind of the process of discovering that or thinking about that in terms of when you're going to make a pivot.
Yeah. So, when it comes to actually being the active investor, my favorite part was, really digging into a deal and, looking at the numbers, seeing if the numbers work, just that acquisition side of things. And so with lending, it's basically the same thing. You're underwriting the loan and looking at that deal. So I'm actually looking at a lot more deals. It's just someone else's deal.
Mhm.
And I kind of treat it more of like as a partnership type of versus just, transaction based.
Yeah.
So with my experience, I can be able to help people with that when I'm looking at the underwriting. I mean, I'll admit, I've actually talked some investors out of a deal,
Yeah.
so because, you're looking at it and, maybe it's just the location and the comps aren't good, or, the renovation is just too big of a renovation. There's all those sorts of things that you analyze. And so that's something that was very transferable on going from the development, the fix and flips to lending.
Yeah. I know I've talked about this before is like in my early years as a real estate investor, I I saw lenders as like something other than a partner. It was just like a
Yeah.
necessary evil, or they're just taking, it's like costing me too much. When you come to realize that certainly a lender, there's a even I could go into contractors as well as about how they're truly a partner. If you find the right people, they're a partner.
Hmm.
But like for example, if you've got somebody that wants to do a deal, you obviously want to make money. As a lender, if you're not willing to lend on it, that should be a serious signal to the buyer that like
Yeah.
there's some stink on this deal, right? And so I think obviously you're trying to protect your money and you're behind you if there is any, but it kind of goes hand in hand. Like if you're not willing to fund a deal, they probably shouldn't be willing to do it at least the way they were planning to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the benefits of the local lender, right, is like they know the market. You know, you're probably more savvy than 99% of the investors in your market just because you've done it for a long time, and now you get to talk with your wallet, and so people, should value that experience because obviously if you're not willing to do it, that's a red flag for sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, and I primarily focus in the Southeast with our lending. So, Tennessee, Northern Alabama, Georgia, Carolinas, and then in Florida as well. So, I started off just, kind of Tennessee. And then again, as I would study markets and get to know these other markets as I grew and as my client base grew as well.
Yeah. Mark, as a lender, could you share, here we are, February 2026. If you had a crystal ball, what are you seeing here on the horizon? I know it's a noisy time for sure. And I know nobody knows, but everybody has opinions. So tell us where you think we're going here.
All right, all right. Yeah, I'm optimistic. The last like I actually took a break from doing lending in 2023 through mid 2025 because of the market. Again, I adapted, but it was also a time where I saw some opportunity with redoing my portfolio because it was mainly smaller residential and kind of do some 1031 exchanges into some multifamily and some commercial properties, some larger properties. But, um, you know, in 2025, last year, I started to see, you know, the market, settled, got to a point where, hey, people are getting used to the new norm. And since, there's been a couple, the Fed has dropped interest rates, a couple, times. So yeah, I'm optimistic, with this year and moving forward. But I always tell people, I mean, it doesn't matter what market you're in. Again, if you adapt and pivot, and make those adjustments, you can do well in any market. I mean, I heard you say you got into the business in 2008. Well, some people will say, well, that's the worst time. You should have never
Yeah.
got into the business
At the
back
time, everybody thought I was crazy. I was just so naive that I didn't know. I wasn't crazy. I was just stupid. But it ended up being a great time to get in. I mean, I was
Oh,
just
absolutely.
we were hungry, right? And so that's one of the things that I've always seen, like having been in the business for quite a while now, is people that come in at any point. And there were times when I thought, man, things are a lot harder than they used to be. And I see some young buck pop up next to me and just crush it. And I'm like, it's what's happening between my ears. It's my expectations. It's like this isn't how it used to be type mentality. And I think we all get that. We just need to realize that there's opportunities in every market.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, we buy from, some of the this is what I think has happened over the past few years. A lot of the people that are selling for convenience reasons that aren't truly distressed to like, this is just an easier sale. Like they're hanging on because, but the people that are the houses that are transacting from all the things that we don't wish this on anybody, but death, divorce, inheritance, problem rentals, like all those things, they don't ride market cycles. Like
Right.
there's not less people dying today because the market's, strong or weak or strong or whatever the situation is. And so that still creates opportunities for real estate investors, which then trickles down to lenders and contractors and everybody else as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, also, I guess back to your question about the crystal ball I can kind of tell by the calls I receive and the leads I get on the market and how things are going. So, like lately even in November and December, and then especially since January, things, have picked back up. But on the commercial side of things, there's definitely a lot more activity because I also do lending, in the commercial space, and that's
Yeah.
a lot more custom. I'm typically in this smaller commercial loan size, like 1 to 10 million. And so, I've definitely talked about some different deals with folks in that space as well. And that's a good sign.
What are you seeing from your perspective on the commercial side? Are there areas that are like seem to be performing better. Like, office space has been difficult for a few years. From my perspective, I could be wrong. You might see something different, but like,
Yeah.
maybe retail space is doing well, but office space is not doing well. So are you seeing any kind of classes of commercial that are clearly laggards and some that are clearly outperforming?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some opportunity in the value add multifamily because there's still kind of mom and pop landlords, ones that might not have kept updating the units or increasing rents. There's definitely been fewer of those because of the market in the last few years, but it's picking back up because of, again, the buyers and sellers were just so far apart in their price. They've kind of got a little closer. So that space, I think in any market, there's always opportunity. It just you might have to run through more transactions or deals to get a transaction in the multifamily world when the market, like the last few years. But another space that I see that I think is really interesting in the commercial side is the medical office space. So there's deals where the doctor group or groups, they own the real estate, they have the medical practice, and they don't want to own the real estate. They just not always,
Sure.
So you can do, some investors, specialize in that, and they do these, triple net lease
Or
acquisitions.
like a sale leaseback. They like sale it and then lease it back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's not this, huge return, but it's a good constant cash flow with, a triple net with, long-term leases. And, they're not going anywhere if you, find the right group and they're good at what they're doing. So that's,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks for sharing some time with us today and getting to know you a little bit better and giving us some insights on what's going on in the market. If folks want to connect with you, where can they go to either connect with you or learn more?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest is our website, bridgesouthinvestments.com. On there's a contact page with, way to contact me directly. But it also just has more information about, what we do and our backstory and all.
Okay. And tell us the name of your book again so that we can try to, if you have it on Amazon, I can find a link for it.
It is. Yeah, it is on Amazon, and it's called Dip Your Toe into Real Estate Investing.
So I'll find a link for that and we'll share that as well. So thanks again for joining us today.
All right, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you in New Orleans in a couple of days. So
Yeah. See you
everybody,
soon.
thanks for joining us today. I hope you got some good insights. Mark's a valuable resource. You should definitely reach out to him. We'll put the links down below. Check out his book. I'm gonna go check it out. And at the end of the day, like, no matter what's going on in the market, you always need to be kind of building up your skills, have your ear to the ground, not for your own business, but to see opportunities that come up that might, create opportunities for you to pivot a little bit or take on something new that kind of makes sense and fits into your business. Appreciate you a bunch. We'll see you on the next show. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.